Captain Dmitri Kozlov stands in the middle of the briefing room at Fort Ravenshollow, arms crossed, his voice cutting through the morning air like a blade. This position requires clear communication, not someone who can't even finish a sentence without stumbling over her own tongue. His words echo off the concrete walls as 30 officers turn their heads toward the woman sitting alone in the back corner. Conversations pause. Coffee cups freeze halfway to lips. The woman is Lieutenant Aria Blackthorne, 28 years old, recently transferred from the linguistics division. She sits with perfect posture, hands folded on the metal table, her pale green eyes focused on the presentation screen. When she tries to respond, the words catch in her throat. I understand your concerns, Captain. The stutter is pronounced, painful to listen to. If you're wondering how a woman who can barely speak a complete sentence without stammering will soon be giving flawless operational commands in 7 different languages to international coalition forces, you're asking exactly the right question. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Kozlov's lip curls into a predatory smile. He's built his reputation on breaking down weak links, and in his mind, Lieutenant Blackthorne represents everything wrong with modern military integration policies. You understand? He repeats mockingly. What exactly do you understand? Because from where I'm standing, the only thing clear is that you don't belong in tactical operations. The briefing room at Fort Ravenshollow is a sterile environment designed for efficiency. Gray walls, fluorescent lighting, rows of tables bolted to the floor. Maps of international theaters cover one wall. Flags from NATO allies hang from the ceiling. This is where the 847th Joint Operations Command plans missions that span multiple continents, coordinate with forces from dozens of nations, and manage operations requiring split-second communication across language barriers. Aria has been assigned here for exactly 3 days. 3 days of sideways glances, whispered conversations, and barely concealed contempt. Her personnel file lists her as a linguistic support specialist, transferred from what most officers consider a desk job for intellectuals who can't handle real military work. No combat experience listed, no field operations, no apparent qualifications for the high-stakes international coordination that defines the 847th's mission. Perhaps, Kozlov continues, his voice growing louder for the benefit of his audience, we should find you a position more suited to your capabilities, filing reports, organizing supply inventories, something that doesn't require speaking to actual human beings. Scattered chuckles ripple through the room. A few officers exchange knowing looks. This is entertainment for them, watching their captain dismantle someone who clearly doesn't measure up. Major Helena Rodriguez shifts uncomfortably in her seat. She's newer to the command, having transferred in just 6 weeks ago, and she's still learning the social dynamics. Something about this situation feels wrong to her, though she can't pinpoint what. Aria's file had crossed her desk during the integration process, and while most of it was standard administrative material, there were sections that seemed oddly redacted for someone in a support role. The thing about tactical operations, Kozlov says, beginning to pace in front of Aria's table, is that hesitation kills. Unclear communication kills. When lives are on the line, we can't afford to wait while someone struggles to form basic words. He stops directly in front of her. Do you understand why that might be a problem, Lieutenant? Aria looks up at him with those unnaturally calm eyes. There's something unsettling about her composure. Most people would be shaking by now, would be fighting back tears or anger. Instead, she simply nods and says, Yes, sir, I understand, see, completely. The response only inflames Kozlov further. Her acceptance feels like mockery to him, like she's not taking his authority seriously. I don't think you do understand, he snaps. This isn't some academic exercise. This isn't a classroom where you can take your time working through pronunciation drills. This is operational command where seconds matter and clarity is the difference between mission success and body bags. The room has gone completely silent now. Even the officers who were enjoying the show are beginning to feel uncomfortable with the intensity of Kozlov's attack. But he's not finished. He's built momentum, and his reputation demands he see this through to its conclusion. I've been in this military for 19 years, he continues, his voice dropping to a more dangerous register. I've served in 4 combat theaters. I've coordinated with forces from 12 different nations, and I have never, not once, seen someone with a communication disorder successfully integrate into high-level tactical operations. He leans forward, close enough that only Aria can hear his next words. You're going to get people killed, Lieutenant, and when that happens, it won't be your fault for being here. It'll be mine for allowing it. Aria maintains eye contact throughout his verbal assault. She doesn't flinch when he invades her personal space. She doesn't break down when he questions her competence. She simply listens with the patience of someone waiting for a bus that's running slightly behind schedule. When Kozlov finally steps back, expecting some kind of emotional response, Aria surprises everyone in the room. She stands slowly, deliberately, and for the first time since arriving at Fort Ravenshollow, she smiles. It's not a nervous smile or a placating smile. It's the smile of someone who knows something that no one else in the room knows, something that changes everything. Thank you for your feedback, Captain, she says quietly. I'll keep that in mind. She gathers her materials with methodical precision, slides her chair back under the table, and walks toward the exit. Her stride is measured, professional. She doesn't hurry. She doesn't look back. She simply leaves, as if this confrontation was exactly what she expected, exactly what she needed. Major Rodriguez watches her go, and something clicks in her mind. The way Aria moved during that entire exchange, the controlled breathing, the tactical awareness of everyone's position in the room, the complete lack of fear response. That's not how linguists behave under pressure. That's how operators behave. That's how people trained for high-stress situations maintain composure when everything around them is chaos. But before Rodriguez can process this observation further, Kozlov is already moving on to the day's operational briefing, satisfied that he's established the proper hierarchy and eliminated a potential weakness from his command structure. What none of them realize is that Lieutenant Aria Blackthorne has just completed the first phase of her real mission, and tomorrow the systematic testing of Fort Ravenshollow's international readiness begins in earnest. The next morning arrives with the kind of gray drizzle that makes Fort Ravenshollow feel more like a prison than a military installation. Aria reports to the communications center at 6:30 hours, 15 minutes before her assigned shift. The facility hums with the constant chatter of radio transmissions, encrypted data streams, and the low buzz of electronic equipment that never sleeps. Staff Sergeant Kyle Morrison looks up from his console when she enters. He's heard about yesterday's briefing room incident. Word travels fast in a facility this size. "Morning, Lieutenant," he says, with the kind of careful neutrality that suggests he's already decided which side of the conflict he's on. "Captain Kozlov left specific instructions for your duties today." Morrison hands her a clipboard thick with paperwork. Equipment inventory. Every radio, every headset, every cable in storage needs to be cataloged, tested, and filed. Should keep you busy for, well, probably the rest of the week. His tone suggests this assignment is meant as punishment, a way to keep the problematic transfer busy with meaningless busy work, while the real operators handle actual communication duties. Aria accepts the clipboard without complaint. Thank you, Sergeant. Where would you like me to start? Storage room C. Morrison points toward a door marked with faded yellow paint. Fair warning, it's a mess in there. Previous inventory was 6 months ago, and half the gear hasn't been touched since. He returns to his console, dismissing her with the confidence of someone who's just solved an administrative problem. What Morrison doesn't see is the way Aria's eyes scan the communications center as she walks towards storage room C. She notes the positioning of every console, identifies the communication protocols being used, catalogs the security measures in place. Her stutter may affect her speech, but it has no impact on her analytical capabilities. Storage room C is exactly as advertised, a chaotic collection of military communication equipment spanning 2 decades of technological evolution. Boxes of radio components compete for space with outdated encryption devices. Tangled cables create a maze across the floor. Dust covers everything like a gray shroud. Aria sets the clipboard on a cleared section of workbench and begins her systematic approach to the inventory. But within the first hour, something becomes apparent to anyone observing closely. Her methodology is far too sophisticated for a simple equipment check. She doesn't just catalog items, she analyzes their capabilities. Each radio gets a functional test that goes well beyond basic operation. She examines frequency ranges, power outputs, encryption compatibility, interference resistance. Her notes, written in neat handwriting despite her speech impediment, contain technical specifications that shouldn't be familiar to someone in a support role. At 1100 hours, Major Rodriguez enters the communications center for a routine status update. Through the open door of storage room C, she observes Aria working with a piece of equipment that Rodriguez recognizes as a KL7 crypto device, a machine so outdated that most current personnel have never seen one operational. Aria has the device completely disassembled, its components spread across the workbench in organized rows. Her hands move with the confidence of someone who has performed this procedure many times before. She's not consulting manuals or technical guides. She's working from memory. Sergeant Morrison, Rodriguez says quietly, how familiar is Lieutenant Blackthorne with vintage crypto equipment? Morrison glances toward storage room C and shrugs. Beats me, Major, but she seems to know what she's doing. Been in there for 4 hours, hasn't asked a single question. Rodriguez steps closer to the storage room doorway. What she sees defies explanation. Aria has not only disassembled the KL7, she's modified it. Circuit boards have been rerouted, components have been replaced with newer equivalents from other devices, and the entire assembly shows signs of systematic modernization. Lieutenant Blackthorne, Rodriguez calls out. Aria looks up from her work. Yes, Major. What exactly are you doing with that equipment? Testing it, ma'am. The inventory R requires functional verification. She gestures to the modified crypto device. This unit was N non-operational due to C component degradation. I'm attempting to restore functionality using available parts. Rodriguez enters the storage room fully. The modification work is beyond impressive. It's professional-grade engineering. Where did you learn to do this level of technical work? Aria's hands pause in their work. For just a moment, something flickers behind her eyes. Calculation, assessment, decision-making. Lay linguistics training includes C communications technology, Major. Understanding the M medium helps with understanding the message. It's a reasonable explanation, but Rodriguez has been around military communications long enough to know that linguistics training doesn't produce this level of hands-on technical expertise. What Aria has accomplished in 4 hours would challenge experienced communications engineers. The modified KL-7 suddenly chirps to life. Status lights illuminate in sequence, and the device begins displaying clear operational parameters on its small screen. Aria has successfully restored a piece of equipment that was written off as permanently non-functional. Impressive, Rodriguez admits. How many languages do your linguistics qualifications cover? Aria carefully sets down her tools before answering. Several, Major. My training emphasized breadth over depth. Several meaning 5 or 6, depending on your definition of fluency. Rodriguez notes the careful phrasing. Most people would give an exact number when discussing their language capabilities. Aria's vague response suggests either false modesty or deliberate misdirection. Before Rodriguez can pursue the question further, Captain Kozlov's voice echoes through the communications center. Major Rodriguez, conference room, now. His tone carries the urgency of developing operational requirements. As Rodriguez leaves storage room C, she glances back at Aria, who has already returned to her meticulous work. The lieutenant's stutter might make her seem vulnerable, but everything else about her behavior suggests capabilities that extend far beyond her official role. What Rodriguez doesn't realize is that Aria heard every word of Kozlov's summons, despite the distance and ambient noise in the communications center. More importantly, she understood the tactical significance of the urgent meeting and has already begun mental preparations for what's coming next. The real test of Fort Ravenshollow's international capabilities is about to begin, and Lieutenant Aria Blackthorne is exactly where she needs to be to observe, evaluate, and document everything that happens. In Storage Room C, she continues her methodical inventory work, but now her activities serve a dual purpose. Every piece of equipment she restores and certifies is a tool that may soon be needed for operations requiring communication across multiple languages, multiple time zones, and multiple levels of security clearance. By 1500 hours, she has restored functionality to 12 pieces of previously inoperative equipment and has compiled technical specifications on every communication device in Fort Ravenshollow's inventory. Her official assignment was punishment busywork. Her actual accomplishment is a comprehensive audit of the facility's communication capabilities, and somewhere in her meticulous notes, written in handwriting that betrays no trace of the speech impediment that affects her verbal communication, are observations that will prove crucial when the time comes for her to reveal exactly what she knows and exactly what she can do. The systematic campaign against Aria begins 3 days after the equipment inventory incident. Captain Kozlov has decided that her unexpected technical competence makes her more dangerous, not less. A linguistics specialist who can rebuild crypto equipment is an anomaly that threatens his carefully constructed narrative about her incompetence. The first coordinated strike comes during the morning briefing. Kozlov assigns Aria to translate a series of intercepted communications from various international sources. Since you claim to have language skills, Lieutenant, let's put them to practical use. He slides a stack of documents across the table. These intercepts need translation by 1400 hours. Standard protocols apply, accuracy over speed, but we do need them completed today. Aria accepts the assignment with her characteristic stutter. Yes, sir. I'll do my best to meet the deadline. The documents are deliberately challenging. Kozlov has selected intercepts in languages he knows will be problematic. Technical Russian discussing satellite communication protocols, idiomatic Arabic containing regional dialects, formal German military correspondence, and conversational French with heavy slang. Each document represents a different level of linguistic complexity. designed to expose the limits of her claimed capabilities. What Kozlov doesn't anticipate is that Aria approaches the translations with the same methodical precision she applied to the equipment inventory. She doesn't just translate words, she analyzes context, identifies technical terminology, cross-references cultural implications. Her work is thorough, systematic, and disturbingly accurate. By 1200 hours, she has completed preliminary translations of all 4 documents. Staff Sergeant Morrison, tasked with monitoring her progress, reports this development to Kozlov with obvious confusion. "Sir, she's finished the Russian and Arabic already, working on the German now. Quality looks comprehensive." Kozlov reviews her work and finds himself facing an uncomfortable reality. The translations are not just accurate, they're professionally formatted, with contextual notes explaining technical references and cultural nuances. This is work that should require native-level fluency, not the basic competence claimed in her personnel file. Rather than acknowledge her capability, Kozlov decides to escalate. "Clearly, these documents were simpler than I initially assessed," he announces during the afternoon briefing. "Tomorrow, Lieutenant Blackthorne will be assigned to real-time translation support for Operation Northern Bridge." Major Rodriguez straightens in her chair. Operation Northern Bridge is a complex multinational exercise involving coordination between American forces, German engineering units, Polish logistics support, and Norwegian communication specialists. The operation requires simultaneous translation across 4 languages during live tactical scenarios. It's demanding work that typically requires a team of certified translators, not a single officer with a speech impediment. "Sir," Rodriguez interjects carefully, "Northern Bridge protocols usually require—" "I'm aware of the protocols, Major." Kozlov's voice carries warning. Lieutenant Blackthorne requested practical application of her language skills. This is her opportunity to demonstrate whether she belongs in operational support or needs reassignment to administrative duties. The trap is carefully constructed. Northern Bridge runs live communication exercises from 0600 to 2200 hours for 3 consecutive days. Participants include senior officers from 4 different nations, each conducting operations in their native languages under high-stress conditions. Translation errors could compromise tactical scenarios, embarrass international partners, or create diplomatic incidents. Aria receives her assignment briefing that evening. The documentation outlines her responsibilities: provide real-time translation between English, German, Polish, and Norwegian during joint tactical exercises, maintain communication clarity during high-stress scenarios, ensure cultural sensitivity in all translations, support coordination between multinational command structures. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Hendricks, the operations senior coordinator, pulls Aria aside after the briefing. "Lieutenant, I want you to understand what you're walking into tomorrow. These exercises simulate combat conditions. Communication happens fast, under pressure, with lives theoretically on the line. The international officers involved are serious professionals who expect precision." She pauses, studying Aria's face for signs of panic. "If you have any doubts about your capabilities, now is the time to request additional support." Aria meets Hendricks's gaze with those unsettling, calm eyes. "I understand the R requirements, Colonel. I'll do my best to meet expectations." Hendricks notes the same pattern Rodriguez observed earlier: complete composure despite facing an impossible challenge. Most officers would be requesting backup translators, asking for preparation time, or expressing legitimate concerns about the assignment's scope. Aria simply accepts the mission as if simultaneous 4-language translation is routine work. The evening before Northern Bridge begins, word spreads through Fort Ravenshollow about the linguistic challenge facing the stuttering lieutenant. The general consensus among officers is that Kozlov has finally found a way to definitively expose her limitations. Some express sympathy for what they see as an inevitable professional humiliation. Others view it as necessary sorting if she can't handle the pressure. Better to discover that now rather than during actual operations. Captain Rebecca Torres, the facility's psychological support officer, approaches Aria in the mess hall that evening. "Lieutenant, I wanted you to know that if you need someone to talk through the stress of tomorrow's assignment, my door is always open." She settles into the chair across from Aria. These kinds of high-pressure situations can be overwhelming, especially when you're dealing with communication challenges. Aria looks up from her dinner, a simple meal eaten methodically, without apparent anxiety about the next day's impossible task. "Thank you, Captain. I appreciate the offer. You seem remarkably calm for someone facing what amounts to a professional trial by fire. I've found that worrying about challenges doesn't reduce their difficulty." Torres studies her response, noting the philosophical sophistication underlying the stuttered delivery. That's a mature perspective. Not many people achieve that level of emotional regulation under pressure. Pressure is relative, Captain. What seems impossible from one perspective might be manageable from another. The conversation continues for several minutes, with Torres attempting to provide psychological support and Aria responding with observations that suggest far more experience with high-stress situations than her file indicates. Eventually, Torres excuses herself, more puzzled than reassured about the lieutenant's mental state. As Aria finishes her meal, she's unaware that her conversation with Torres was observed by 3 different officers, each drawing their own conclusions about her psychological fitness for the next day's assignment. The consensus remains that she's either in denial about the challenge she faces or lacks sufficient understanding of what real-time tactical translation involves. What none of them realize is that Aria has spent the past week systematically studying every aspect of Operation Northern Bridge. She knows the participating units, their operational procedures, their common terminology, and their communication protocols. More importantly, she understands exactly what kind of test Kozlov has designed and exactly how she needs to respond. That night, in her quarters, she reviews her notes one final time. Technical vocabularies in 4 languages, military protocols for each participating nation, communication hierarchies and proper forms of address, cultural sensitivities that could affect translation accuracy, emergency procedures if communication breaks down. Her preparation is thorough, professional, and completely unnecessary for someone planning to fail spectacularly at an impossible assignment. At 2300 hours, she sets her alarm for 0500, ensuring adequate time for final preparation before reporting for duty. Her sleep is undisturbed by anxiety or doubt. Whatever happens tomorrow, she's ready for it. The systematic campaign to expose her limitations is about to collide with capabilities that extend far beyond anything her opponents have imagined. Operation Northern Bridge will indeed test translation skills, cultural competence, and performance under pressure. But the results will not be what Captain Kozlov expects. Operation Northern Bridge begins at exactly 0600 hours with the kind of controlled chaos that defines multinational military exercises. The main communications hub at Fort Ravenshollow transforms into a nerve center where 4 languages compete for airspace, tactical scenarios unfold in real time, and the margin for error approaches 0. Major Rodriguez arrives early to observe what she expects will be either a spectacular failure or an impossible success. The setup is more complex than she initially realized. 4 separate command stations represent German, Polish, Norwegian, and American forces. Each station operates with authentic equipment, genuine tactical scenarios, and native-speaking officers who have no intention of slowing their communication pace to accommodate translation difficulties. Aria reports for duty at 0545 hours, carrying a simple notepad and wearing the standard-issue communications headset that will connect her to all 4 command frequencies simultaneously. She settles into the translator station, a position that typically requires a team of specialists, and begins her equipment check with methodical precision. Lieutenant Colonel Anders Bergstrom arrives from the Norwegian contingent, a career officer with steel-gray eyes and the bearing of someone who has spent 30 years coordinating international operations. He approaches Aria's station with obvious skepticism. "Lieutenant, I want to be clear about expectations. Today's exercise involves live tactical scenarios with time-sensitive decision points. Communication delays can compromise entire operational sequences." Aria adjusts her headset and meets his gaze steadily. "I understand the R requirements, Colonel. I'll maintain C communication flow as efficiently as possible." Bergstrom exchanges a meaningful look with Major Klaus Richter, the German liaison officer who has just joined them. Both men share the same concern. This exercise is too important for experimental assignments, but their objections were overruled by Captain Kozlov's insistence that Lieutenant Blackthorne needed practical evaluation. At exactly 0600 hours, the first tactical scenario begins. German engineering units start coordinating bridge construction protocols with Polish logistics support, while Norwegian communication specialists relay strategic updates to American command authority. The language mix is immediate and intense. "Brückenbaustelle Sektor 7, Fortschritt 60%, benötigen zusätzliche Stahlträger," comes the rapid German transmission from Major Richter's engineering team. Aria's response is instantaneous and clear. "Bridge construction site, Sector 7, progress 60%, requesting additional steel supports." The American commander acknowledges and immediately queries Polish logistics. "Confirm availability of steel reinforcement materials for German engineering, grid reference 7 Alpha 4. Without pause, Aria translates into Polish. "Potwierdzenie dostępności materiałów wzmacniających stalowych dla inżynierii niemieckiej, odniesienie siatki 7 Alpha 4. The Polish logistics coordinator, Captain Marek Kowalski, responds with shipping details and delivery timelines. Aria translates his complex logistical breakdown into English while simultaneously receiving Norwegian communications about weather conditions affecting helicopter transport schedules. What becomes apparent within the first 30 minutes is that Aria isn't just translating words. She's maintaining 4 separate conversational contexts simultaneously. She tracks the German engineering progress, understands the Polish supply chain requirements, monitors Norwegian weather concerns, and coordinates American tactical oversight, all while ensuring that cultural communication preferences are respected for each nationality. Major Rodriguez watches from the observation area, taking notes that she initially intended for documenting translation failures. Instead, she finds herself recording something entirely different, evidence of linguistic capability that exceeds anything in Aria's official qualifications. Colonel Hendricks joins Rodriguez at the observation station around 800 hours. How is she performing? See for yourself. Rodriguez hands over her notes. She's been maintaining simultaneous 4-language communication for 2 hours without hesitation, error, or delay. Hendricks reviews the documentation, her expression growing more puzzled with each entry. This indicates native-level fluency in all 4 languages. Her file lists basic conversational capability in 3 of them. The tactical scenarios intensify as the morning progresses. Emergency situations are introduced. Equipment failures that require immediate technical consultation, weather emergencies that demand rapid coordination changes, communication breakdowns that need instant protocol adjustments. Each crisis requires faster communication, more precise translation, and deeper understanding of military terminology across 4 different linguistic traditions. During a particularly complex sequence involving Norwegian helicopter coordination with German ground units, while Polish logistics reroutes supplies around weather delays, Aria demonstrates something that makes Major Rodriguez question everything she thought she understood about translation work. A critical miscommunication develops between the Norwegian pilot and German ground commander regarding landing zone specifications. The Norwegian term landingsplass has multiple technical meanings depending on context, and the German understanding of Landeplatz doesn't align with the tactical requirements. Standard translation protocols would relay the confusion to command authority for clarification, causing potentially dangerous delays. Instead, Aria intervenes directly in both languages, explaining the technical distinction to each party in their native tongue, ensuring that both understand the specific operational requirements and coordinating a solution that satisfies Norwegian safety protocols and German tactical needs. The entire intervention takes less than 90 seconds and prevents what could have been a serious operational failure. Captain Kozlov observes this intervention from his position at the American command station. Rather than being impressed by Aria's linguistic crisis management, he becomes more suspicious about her actual qualifications. No linguistics support specialist should possess the technical knowledge necessary to resolve specialized military terminology conflicts between 2 foreign languages. Lieutenant Blackthorne, he calls across the communications hub, report to my station for consultation. Aria acknowledges the request while simultaneously maintaining her translation duties. She doesn't pause her work or ask for coverage. She simply expands her attention to include Kozlov's requirements alongside her existing responsibilities. Yes, sir? Explain your intervention in the Norwegian-German landing zone coordination. Technical miscommunication between similar terms with different operational definitions required contextual C clarification to prevent tactical delays. Kozlov studies her face, searching for signs of deception or overconfidence. You resolved a specialized aviation terminology conflict in 2 foreign languages within 90 seconds. That suggests expertise beyond basic conversational capability. Aria maintains her calm expression while continuing to monitor all 4 communication channels. A Polish transmission requires her attention, and she provides the necessary translation without breaking eye contact with Kozlov. Linguistics training emphasized technical vocabulary, sir. Military C communications require precision. Before Kozlov can pursue his questioning further, Colonel Bergstrom approaches with an expression that combines professional respect and barely concealed amazement. Captain, I need to commend Lieutenant Blackthorne's performance. She just prevented a potentially serious coordination failure through linguistic intervention that required advanced understanding of both Norwegian and German military protocols. Major Richter joins them, nodding in agreement. Her technical German is exceptional. She's translating engineering specifications with accuracy that indicates specialized training. Captain Kowalski completes the international consensus. Polish logistics coordination has been flawless. She understands supply chain terminology that even some of our native speakers struggle with. Kozlov finds himself facing unanimous praise from 3 experienced international officers, each confirming that Aria's linguistic capabilities exceed anything suggested by her stuttered English communications or her official qualifications. The systematic campaign to expose her limitations has instead demonstrated competencies that raise entirely different questions about her background and training. As the morning session concludes and the tactical scenarios pause for midday evaluation, Aria continues monitoring communication channels with the same steady composure she's maintained since 0600 hours. She shows no signs of fatigue, stress, or the communication overload that typically affects translators working with multiple simultaneous language streams. Major Rodriguez approaches her station as the official break period begins. "Lieutenant, that was remarkable work. How are you managing the cognitive load of 4-language simultaneous translation?" Aria removes her headset and flexes her shoulders slightly, the first sign of physical strain she's displayed all morning. Practice, Major. Familiarity with the material helps reduce processing demands. Familiarity with multinational military exercises? A pause, brief but noticeable. Linguistics training included tactical communication scenarios. It's another carefully neutral response that answers the specific question without providing broader context. Rodriguez notes the pattern. Aria consistently provides minimum necessary information while deflecting deeper inquiries about her background. The afternoon session promises even greater challenges as the exercise scenarios shift from coordination to crisis management. High-stress situations where communication breakdowns can mean theoretical casualties and operational failures. But as the international officers prepare for the afternoon's increased complexity, none of them question whether Aria can handle the escalation. Her morning performance has established her credibility in ways that her official file never could. What they don't realize is that the morning session was Aria's warm-up. The real demonstration of her capabilities is scheduled for the afternoon, when the exercise scenarios will require not just translation, but tactical analysis, cultural mediation, and the kind of linguistic leadership that goes far beyond anything expected from a support specialist with a stutter. The afternoon session of Operation Northern Bridge introduces psychological warfare elements designed to test not just linguistic capability, but mental resilience under extreme pressure. Captain Kozlov has personally requested these additions, convinced that high-stress scenarios will finally expose the limits of Aria's performance. The tactical setup shifts dramatically at 1400 hours. Instead of the controlled morning exercises, the afternoon presents cascading crisis scenarios where multiple emergencies unfold simultaneously across all 4 command stations. Equipment failures, simulated casualties, weather emergencies, and communication breakdowns create a perfect storm of operational chaos requiring instant linguistic response. The first crisis erupts when the German engineering unit reports structural failure in their bridge construction project. Major Richter's transmission comes rapid-fire, filled with technical terminology and urgent emotion. Notfall, Brückenträger Sektor 4 zeigt kritische Belastungsrisse. Sofortige Evakuierung aller Einheiten erforderlich. Wiederhole, strukturelle Instabilität, alle Personell zurückziehen. Aria's translation is immediate and precise. Emergency. Bridge support Sector 4 showing critical stress fractures. Immediate evacuation of all units required. Repeat. Structural instability. All personnel withdraw. Before the American command can fully process this information, Norwegian communications explode with weather emergency reports. Colonel Bergström's voice carries genuine urgency. Värstation rapporterar plötslig snöstorm närmar sig. Synlighet under 50 meter. Helikopteroperationer måste stoppas omedelbart. Aria translates without pause. Weather station reports sudden snowstorm approaching. Visibility below 50 meters. Helicopter operations must cease immediately. Simultaneously, the Polish logistics coordinator reports supply convoy difficulties. Konwój zaopatrzeniowy utknął w błocie. Potrzebne natychmiastowe wsparcie odzysku, materiały krytyczne dla naprawy mostu. The translation flows seamlessly. Supply convoy stuck in mud, immediate recovery support needed, materials critical for bridge repair. 3 separate emergencies, 4 languages, multiple technical specializations, all requiring instant coordination. The communication load would challenge an entire translation team working under ideal conditions. Aria handles it alone while monitoring baseline communication traffic from all 4 command stations. Captain Torres, observing from the psychological evaluation station, makes rapid notes about stress response patterns. What she documents defies standard psychological profiles. Instead of the expected cognitive overload symptoms, delayed reactions, translation errors, mounting stress indicators, Aria demonstrates something approaching supernatural calm. Her voice maintains the same steady rhythm, whether translating routine logistics updates or critical emergency communications. Major Rodriguez watches Kozlov's face during this crisis sequence, noting his growing frustration as each scenario fails to break Aria's composure. Rather than accepting her demonstrated capability, he appears personally offended by her success, as if her competence represents a challenge to his authority rather than an asset to operational effectiveness. The crisis scenarios intensify. A simulated medical emergency requires coordination between Norwegian medical evacuation protocols and German field treatment procedures. The terminology becomes highly specialized. Anatomical references, pharmaceutical specifications, emergency medical procedures, all requiring culturally sensitive translation that maintains technical precision while respecting different national approaches to military medicine. Patient med alvorlig hovedskade trænger øjeblikkelig neurokirurgisk vurdering, kan ikke transporteres uden stabilisering, reports the Norwegian medic. Aria translates, patient with severe head trauma requires immediate neurosurgical assessment, cannot transport without stabilization. The German medical officer responds with treatment protocols. Neurochirurgische Stabilisierung hier nicht verfügbar. Transport zum Hauptquartier erforderlich, trotz Wetterrisiken. Neurosurgical stabilization not available here. Transport to headquarters required despite weather risks. The medical coordination continues for 23 minutes of intensive communication involving precise medical terminology in 4 languages, while other tactical scenarios develop simultaneously. Emergency logistics, weather crisis management, structural engineering consultations, and medical evacuation coordination, all flowing through Aria's linguistic capabilities without hesitation or error. Lieutenant Colonel Hendricks approaches Major Rodriguez during a brief operational pause. This performance is unprecedented. I've supervised international exercises for 8 years, and I've never seen single translator coordination at this level. Her file suggests basic conversational capability in 3 languages. Rodriguez responds, what we're observing indicates native-level fluency in all 4, plus specialized technical vocabularies in multiple professional fields. How does someone develop that level of linguistic expertise while maintaining a speech impediment in English? Rodriguez has no answer. The contradiction between Aria's stuttered English communications and her flawless performance in German, Polish, and Norwegian creates a mystery that conventional linguistic training cannot explain. Speech impediments typically affect all languages equally. They don't selectively impact native tongue while leaving foreign language capability unimpaired. The afternoon's final crisis sequence pushes psychological pressure to extreme levels. Captain Kozlov introduces a scenario involving simulated combat conditions where communication delays could theoretically result in casualties. The pressure tactic is deliberate. Create artificial stakes high enough to trigger performance anxiety in even experienced translators. All stations, this is command, Kozlov announces. Scenario modification. Hostile forces detected approaching bridge construction site. All communications now classified as combat critical. Translation delays could compromise personnel safety. The artificial urgency transforms the communication environment. International officers begin speaking faster, using more informal military slang, expressing genuine emotional intensity despite the simulated nature of the exercise. The linguistic challenges multiply as formal military protocols give way to high-stress battlefield communication patterns. Norwegian. Fiendtlige styrker, distance 800 meter, beweger sig mot våra positioner. Polish. Saperzy potrzebują jeszcze 10 minut na zabezpieczenie mostu. German. Deckungsfeuer von Sektor 2. Alle Einheiten bereit machen für Rückzug. Each transmission requires instant translation while maintaining tactical coherence across 4 different military traditions. The communication pace accelerates beyond anything normally expected in international exercises, yet Aria's performance remains flawless. Her translations capture not just linguistic content, but tactical urgency, cultural context, and operational priorities. Captain Torres notes something remarkable in her psychological evaluation. Aria's performance actually improves under increased pressure. Her translation speed increases, her technical accuracy sharpens, and her cultural sensitivity becomes more precise. This represents the opposite of normal human stress response patterns, where performance typically degrades as pressure intensifies. The simulated combat scenario continues for 47 minutes of sustained high-intensity communication. Multiple tactical situations develop simultaneously: casualty evacuation, defensive positioning, equipment recovery, strategic withdrawal coordination. Each situation requires specialized military vocabulary in 4 languages, while maintaining split-second timing that could theoretically affect personnel survival. When the exercise finally concludes at 1800 hours, the international officers gather for debriefing with expressions that combine professional respect and barely concealed amazement. Colonel Bergstrom speaks first. Lieutenant Blackthorne's performance today exceeded every standard we've established for international communication coordination. Major Richter nods agreement. Technical German translation was flawless. She understood engineering specifications, medical terminology, and tactical procedures with expertise that suggests specialized military training. Captain Kowalski completes the international assessment. Polish logistics coordination was perfect. She managed supply chain terminology, transportation protocols, and emergency procedures without a single error. Lieutenant Colonel Hendricks documents their feedback while studying Aria's reaction to the praise. Most officers would show signs of relief, satisfaction, or exhaustion after such an intensive performance. Aria simply maintains her characteristic calm composure, as if 12 hours of 4-language simultaneous translation under combat stress conditions was routine professional duty. Lieutenant, Hendricks addresses her directly, today's performance significantly exceeds the linguistic capabilities suggested by your personnel file. Can you explain this discrepancy? Aria meets her gaze with those unsettling steady eyes. T training opportunities vary, Colonel. P practical application sometimes R reveals capabilities that aren't apparent in C-controlled settings. Another carefully neutral response that provides minimum necessary information while avoiding broader context about her background. The pattern has become unmistakable. Aria consistently deflects inquiries about her qualifications, while demonstrating expertise that defies conventional explanation. Captain Kozlov observes the debriefing from his command station, his frustration now openly visible. His systematic campaign to expose Aria's limitations has instead documented capabilities that raise entirely different questions about her actual qualifications and mission at Fort Ravenshollow. As the international officers conclude their positive evaluations and prepare to depart, none of them suspect that Operation Northern Bridge was never about testing translation capabilities. It was about establishing credibility for something far more significant that requires absolute confidence in Aria's linguistic expertise. Tomorrow, that confidence will be crucial when Fort Ravenshollow receives an emergency communication that will test not just translation skills, but Aria's true mission at the facility. Major Rodriguez discovers the security anomaly entirely by accident. While reviewing communication logs from Operation Northern Bridge for her post-exercise report, she notices an irregularity in the system access records. Lieutenant Blackthorne's user credentials show attempted queries to databases that should be completely outside her clearance level. The first query targeted the Joint Personnel Database, specifically requesting information about linguistics specialists with combat deployment history. The second attempted to access classified training records from the Defense Language Institute. The third, most troubling, sought information about deep cover operative protocols from counterintelligence archives. All three queries were automatically denied due to insufficient clearance, but their existence raises immediate questions about Aria's actual mission at Fort Ravenshollow. Linguistic support specialists don't typically investigate combat deployment records or counterintelligence protocols. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Rodriguez brings her findings to Lieutenant Colonel Hendricks at 0800 hours the following morning. "Colonel, we may have a security concern with Lieutenant Blackthorne." Hendricks reviews the access logs while drinking her morning coffee. Her expression grows increasingly serious with each entry. These queries suggest intelligence-gathering activities. Has she been briefed on any operations requiring this level of background research? Not through normal channels. Her assignment is linguistics support for international exercises. Nothing in her duties requires access to classified personnel records or counterintelligence databases. Hendricks sets down her coffee and reaches for her secure phone. "I'm calling Major Harrison from base security. This needs immediate investigation." Major Harrison arrives within 15 minutes, bringing 2 specialists from the counterintelligence office. The team reviews Rodriguez's findings while accessing additional security monitoring systems that track all computer activity on the base network. What they discover expands the mystery significantly. Aria's computer usage patterns demonstrate sophisticated operational security practices. She regularly clears browser histories, uses encrypted communication protocols, and accesses systems during off hours when network monitoring is reduced. Her digital behavior suggests training in intelligence tradecraft, not linguistics support. These patterns are consistent with intelligence operative protocols, Harrison explains to the assembled group. She's maintaining operational security as if she's conducting classified activities. Harrison's specialist, Sergeant Kim Walsh, provides additional technical analysis. Her computer shows evidence of software installations that aren't part of standard base systems. Encryption programs, secure communication applications, data analysis tools. This equipment is configured for intelligence work. Hendricks studies the technical readout with growing concern. How does a linguistics support specialist acquire this level of technical capability, and why does she need it for translation duties? The security investigation expands to include physical surveillance. Harrison assigns 2 specialists to monitor Aria's activities outside normal duty hours, looking for evidence of unauthorized contacts or suspicious behavior patterns. What they observe over the next 48 hours deepens the mystery rather than resolving it. Aria maintains perfect operational discipline in all activities. She varies her routes between buildings, uses counter-surveillance techniques when moving around the base, and demonstrates situational awareness that suggests advanced training in personal security. During off-duty hours, she visits the base library and accesses military history archives, focusing specifically on international incident reports involving communication failures during joint operations. Her research appears academic, but the subjects she chooses relate directly to operational security concerns that would interest intelligence analysts. Sergeant Walsh reports these observations during a briefing on Friday morning. Her behavior is consistent with deep cover operative protocols. She maintains cover identity while conducting systematic intelligence gathering about base operations and international coordination procedures. Major Rodriguez participates in the briefing via secure communication from her office, where she's been analyzing additional evidence. I've been reviewing her personnel file more carefully. The background information is remarkably thin for someone with her demonstrated capabilities. How thin? Harrison asks. Her linguistics training is documented through standard military schools, but the timeline doesn't account for the technical expertise we observed during Northern Bridge. She demonstrates native-level fluency in languages that aren't listed in her educational background. Hendricks requests access to Aria's complete military record, including any classified elements that might explain the discrepancies. The request triggers an automated response that surprises everyone in the room. Access denied, compartmented information. Contact JSOC Oversight for authorization. JSOC? Hendricks looks puzzled. Joint Special Operations Command. Why would a linguistics support specialist have JSOC oversight? Harrison attempts to contact JSOC directly for clarification about Aria's status. The response comes within 2 hours, but it raises more questions than it answers. Lieutenant Blackthorne's assignment is classified at compartmented level. No additional information available without specialized clearance codes. The security team finds itself facing an unprecedented situation. They have evidence suggesting that Aria is conducting intelligence activities under cover of her linguistics assignment, but her actual status is protected by classification levels that prevent them from investigating further. Friday afternoon brings an additional complication when Captain Kozlov approaches Harrison with his own concerns. Major, I want to file a formal complaint about Lieutenant Blackthorne's presence in my command. What grounds? Her performance during Northern Bridge was too perfect. Nobody demonstrates that level of capability without extensive specialized training. I believe she's misrepresenting her qualifications for unknown purposes. Harrison reviews Kozlov's complaint while considering the security team's parallel investigation. 2 separate inquiries have reached the same conclusion. Through different evidence, Aria's documented background doesn't align with her demonstrated capabilities. Captain, what specific concerns do you have about her intentions? Kozlov chooses his words carefully. International exercises involve sensitive coordination protocols, communication procedures, and tactical information. Someone with hidden capabilities and unknown motivations represents a potential security risk. Harrison cannot share the details of his security investigation with Kozlov, but the captain's concerns align perfectly with the counterintelligence team's findings. Aria's activities suggest systematic intelligence gathering about international operational procedures. The investigation takes an unexpected turn when Sergeant Walsh discovers encrypted communication activity from Aria's quarters. Using advanced monitoring equipment, she detects brief data transmissions occurring during early morning hours when most personnel are off duty. The communications are heavily encrypted. Walsh reports during Saturday morning briefing, "We can detect them but cannot intercept content. The encryption protocols suggest government-level security." Direction of transmission unknown. The signals are routed through multiple relay points before reaching their final destination. This level of communication security exceeds what civilian contractors typically have access to. Major Harrison makes a decision that will change the trajectory of the entire investigation. We need to confront her directly, whatever Lieutenant Blackthorne's actual mission. Operating under false pretenses on a military installation represents a security concern that requires immediate resolution. He schedules a mandatory meeting for Monday morning, officially designated as a routine security briefing for personnel with database access irregularities. The innocuous description is designed to avoid alerting Aria to the true nature of the investigation while ensuring her attendance. Hendricks approves the approach while requesting additional security measures. If she's operating under deep cover, confronting her could trigger protocols we're not prepared for. I want backup procedures in place. Rodriguez suggests involving Captain Torres from psychological support. If this confrontation reveals classified information about her actual status, we may need professional assessment of the psychological implications. As the team prepares for Monday's confrontation, none of them anticipate that their investigation has already been detected. Aria's sophisticated surveillance awareness has identified their monitoring activities, and she has spent the weekend making her own preparations for the inevitable security review. The counter-surveillance techniques that concerned Harrison so much have also allowed her to track his investigation. She knows about the database query analysis, the physical surveillance, the communication monitoring, and the planned confrontation meeting. More importantly, she knows that her cover identity has served its purpose. The systematic testing of Fort Ravenshollow's international communication capabilities is complete. Her assessment of the facility's operational security, personnel reliability, and coordination protocols has provided the intelligence required for her actual mission. Monday morning's security briefing will indeed provide resolution to the questions surrounding Lieutenant Aria Blackthorne, but the answers will not be what Major Harrison and his team expect. The investigation they believe will expose a security breach will instead reveal that everything they've observed was part of a larger operation with authorization that extends far beyond Fort Ravenshollow's chain of command. The woman they've been investigating as a potential threat is about to demonstrate that the real security concerns at their facility extend in directions none of them have considered, and the systematic campaign that began with Captain Kozlov's attempt to humiliate a stuttering linguistics specialist is about to culminate in revelations that will transform their understanding of international military coordination, operational security, and the hidden networks that protect American interests across multiple continents. Captain Kozlov orchestrates his final gambit with the precision of a military operation. Over the weekend, he has coordinated with 3 department heads to create what he considers an inescapable trap for Lieutenant Blackthorne. The plan involves simultaneous challenges across multiple operational areas, designed to overwhelm even the most capable linguistics specialist and definitively expose the limits of her abilities. Monday morning brings news of an emergency international coordination requirement. A developing crisis in Eastern Europe has activated NATO Article 4 consultations, requiring immediate communication support between Allied forces. The scenario is real, the stakes are genuine, and the linguistic demands are beyond anything previously attempted at Fort Ravenshollow. Lieutenant Blackthorne, Kozlov announces during the 0700 briefing, you've been selected to provide primary translation support for Operation Shield Wall. This is a live NATO coordination exercise involving 7 allied nations responding to potential territorial incursions. The assignment parameters are staggering. Real-time translation between English, German, Polish, Norwegian, French, Italian, and Spanish. Coordination between Air Force, Navy, and ground units from multiple countries. Technical terminology spanning aviation, naval operations, logistics, intelligence, and diplomatic protocols. Time-sensitive communications where delays could affect actual military positioning. Major Rodriguez reviews the assignment details with growing alarm. Sir, this level of coordination typically requires a team of 12 certified translators working in rotation, 7 languages with technical specializations across multiple military branches. Lieutenant Blackthorne requested practical application of her linguistic capabilities, Kozlov interrupts. This is her opportunity to demonstrate whether she belongs in international operations or needs reassignment to administrative duties. The briefing room fills with uncomfortable tension. Every officer present understands that this assignment represents professional execution disguised as operational necessity. No single translator, regardless of capability, should be expected to handle 7-language simultaneous coordination for a live NATO exercise. Aria receives the assignment documentation without visible reaction. 17 pages of operational protocols, communication hierarchies for 7 different nations, technical vocabulary spanning multiple military specializations, and emergency procedures for communication breakdown scenarios. She reviews the material with the same methodical attention she applied to equipment inventory 3 weeks earlier. Questions, Lieutenant? Kozlov's tone carries barely concealed anticipation of her inevitable request for additional support or assignment modification. What is the expected duration of sea coordination requirements? 12 hours minimum, potentially extending to 72 hours depending on crisis development. 72 hours of 7-language simultaneous translation during a live NATO exercise. The assignment is beyond unreasonable. It approaches the deliberately impossible. Yet Aria simply nods acknowledgement and begins organizing her materials for immediate deployment to the International Communications Center. Lieutenant Colonel Hendricks pulls Kozlov aside as the briefing concludes. Captain, this assignment could compromise NATO coordination if translation capabilities prove insufficient. Are you certain about placing this level of responsibility on a single officer? Kozlov's confidence remains absolute. Colonel, Lieutenant Blackthorne has consistently claimed linguistic capabilities that exceed her documented qualifications. This assignment will provide definitive evaluation of those claims. What Kozlov doesn't anticipate is that his definitive evaluation is about to collide with capabilities that extend far beyond anything he has imagined. The systematic campaign to overwhelm Aria's linguistic abilities is about to reveal exactly why her personnel file contains JSOC oversight classifications and why her communication equipment includes encryption protocols typically reserved for intelligence operatives. The International Communications Center transforms into a tactical nerve center as NATO coordination requirements activate. Representatives from 7 allied nations establish communication links with their respective military commands. Multiple screens display real-time intelligence feeds, tactical maps, and operational status reports. The linguistic complexity increases exponentially as formal diplomatic protocols mix with urgent military communications. Aria assumes her position at the primary translation station, surrounded by communication equipment that connects her simultaneously to 7 different command frequencies. Her headset configuration allows instant switching between language channels while maintaining monitoring capability across all active communications. The technical setup resembles intelligence operative equipment more than standard translation support. The first communications begin at 0900 hours with diplomatic coordination between NATO headquarters and member nation representatives. Formal protocol language requiring precise cultural sensitivity while conveying urgent operational information. French diplomatic transmission. Secrétaire général demande clarification immédiate concernant les mouvements de troupes non autorisés dans les zones frontalières désignées. Aria's translation maintint diplomatic nuance. Secretary General requests immediate clarification regarding unauthorized troop movements in designated border zones. The German military response requires technical precision. Aufklärungseinheiten bestätigen Bewegungen, aber Identifikation der Einheiten bleibt ungewiss. Zusätzliche Überwachung erforderlich. Translation: Reconnaissance units confirm movements, but unit identification remains uncertain. Additional surveillance required. Spanish naval coordination adds maritime complexity. Unidades navales en posición preparadas para interceptación si se confirma violación de aguas territoriales. Translation: Naval units in position prepared for interdiction if territorial water violations confirmed. The communication pace accelerates as the exercise scenario develops. Italian Air Force units coordinate reconnaissance missions, while Polish ground forces establish border monitoring positions. Norwegian intelligence services provide surveillance data, while French logistics coordinate supply lines for potential extended operations. Each communication stream requires instant translation while maintaining technical accuracy across multiple military specializations. Aviation terminology, naval protocols, intelligence procedures, diplomatic language, and tactical coordination, all flowing through Aria's linguistic capabilities simultaneously. Major Rodriguez observes from the monitoring station, documenting what should be communication breakdown and performance failure. Instead, she records something that defies conventional understanding of human linguistic capability. Aria manages 7-language simultaneous translation with accuracy that exceeds native speaker standards, while maintaining cultural sensitivity appropriate for each national communication style. The exercise intensifies as crisis scenarios develop. Simulated border incursions trigger emergency response protocols requiring immediate coordination between air, sea, and ground forces from 7 different countries. The communication complexity reaches levels that would challenge entire translation departments operating under ideal conditions. Italian Reconnaissance Report: Ricognizione aerea conferma colonna blindata di origine sconosciuta, approssimativamente 40 veicoli, movimento verso posizioni NATO. Translation with tactical urgency. Aerial reconnaissance confirms armored column of unknown origin, approximately 40 vehicles moving toward NATO positions. Polish ground response. Jednostki graniczne w pełnej gotowości, przygotowane do działań obronnych, oczekujące dalszych rozkazów. Translation: Border units at full readiness, prepared for defensive action, awaiting further orders. Norwegian Intelligence Assessment. Satellitovervåkning bekræfter uidentificerede styrker. Anbefaler ÖKT-beredskab for alle grænsenheder. Translation: Satellite surveillance confirms unidentified forces. Recommend increased readiness for all border units. French Logistics Coordination. Unité logistique mobilisée, ravitaillement et soutien disponible pour opérations étendues si nécessaire. Translation: Logistics units mobilized, supply and support available for extended operations if necessary. The communication flow continues for 8 hours without pause. Multiple crisis scenarios, complex coordination requirements, technical terminology that spans military, diplomatic, and intelligence domains. Each transmission requires instant linguistic processing while maintaining operational security and cultural appropriateness for 7 different national communication traditions. Captain Torres conducts psychological monitoring throughout the exercise, documenting stress response patterns that contradict every established model for human performance under extreme cognitive load. Instead of degradation, fatigue, or error accumulation, Aria demonstrates increasing efficiency as communication complexity intensifies. By hour 10, she's anticipating communication requirements before they're transmitted, providing preliminary translations while maintaining real-time response capability. Her performance transcends translation work and approaches tactical coordination, as if she understands operational implications across 7 different military traditions simultaneously. Captain Kozlov observes this performance with growing frustration that borders on professional desperation. His systematic campaign to expose Aria's limitations has instead documented capabilities that suggest training and experience far beyond anything explained by her official background. Rather than achieving professional destruction, his escalating challenges have created evidence of competencies that raise fundamental questions about her actual identity and mission. The exercise reaches its crescendo when all 7 nations must coordinate a unified response to the simulated border crisis. Simultaneous communications in 7 languages, complex tactical procedures, diplomatic protocols, and time-sensitive decision-making that affects theoretical international security. German Command, alle Einheiten in Bereitschaftsstellung, koordinierte Antwort mit Verbündeten erforderlich. Polish response, potwierdzenie gotowości oczekujące sygnału do skoordynowanej akcji. French coordination, forces en position prêtes pour action coordonnée avec partenaires de l'Alliance. Italian confirmation, unità preparate, sincronizzazione con forze alleate confermata. Spanish acknowledgement, fuerzas listas, coordinación internacional establecida. Norwegian readiness, styrker klare, internationalt samarbeit bekräftigt. English summary for NATO command. All Allied forces report readiness, coordinated response capability confirmed, awaiting authorization for unified action. 7 languages, 7 military traditions, 7 different approaches to tactical coordination, all flowing through a single translator who maintains perfect accuracy while ensuring cultural appropriateness and operational security. The linguistic achievement transcends anything documented in military communication history. As the exercise concludes at 100 hours, the international representatives gather for debriefing with expressions that combine professional amazement and barely concealed confusion about what they've witnessed. 12 hours of 7-language simultaneous translation during a live NATO coordination exercise, performed by a single officer who demonstrates linguistic capabilities that exceed anything in her documented background. The systematic campaign to overwhelm Lieutenant Blackthorne's abilities has instead created a record of performance that will trigger investigation by authorities far above Fort Ravenshollow's command structure. And tomorrow, those authorities will arrive to provide answers that Captain Kozlov never anticipated and explanations that will transform everyone's understanding of international military coordination, operational security, and the hidden networks that protect Allied interests across multiple continents. Tuesday morning arrives with an atmosphere of impending resolution that everyone at Fort Ravenshollow can feel, but no one can explain. The successful completion of Operation Shield Wall has created ripples that extend far beyond the base's normal operational scope. Phone calls have been made to Washington. Reports have been filed with classification levels that require specialized clearance. And somewhere in the Pentagon's labyrinthine corridors, decisions have been reached that will fundamentally alter the situation at Fort Ravenshollow. At 0800 hours, 3 black SUVs with government plates arrive at the main gate. The vehicles pass through security with credentials that bypass normal verification procedures, heading directly toward the command building with the kind of purposeful movement that suggests predetermined destinations and prearranged meetings. Major Rodriguez observes their arrival from her office window, noting the professional bearing of the occupants and the sophisticated communication equipment visible through tinted windows. These are not routine inspectors or administrative visitors. These are officials with authority that operates above normal military hierarchy. The first indication of their purpose comes when Lieutenant Colonel Hendricks receives a secure communication directing her to assemble all personnel involved in recent international exercises. The message originates from a Pentagon office that doesn't appear in standard military directories, carries classification markings she's never seen before, and requires immediate compliance without question or delay. Captain Kozlov reports to the designated conference room with expectations that align perfectly with his systematic campaign against Aria. He anticipates vindication for his concerns about her unexplained capabilities, official recognition of his professional judgment, and formal procedures to address the security irregularities he's identified. Major Rodriguez and Captain Torres join the assembly with entirely different expectations. Their observations of Aria's performance suggest they're about to witness revelations that will explain mysteries rather than confirm suspicions. The woman who demonstrated 7-language fluency during Shield Wall clearly possesses qualifications that extend far beyond her documented background. The conference room fills with an unusual mixture of anticipation and apprehension. International officers from the recent NATO exercise attend via secure video links, their presence suggesting that whatever revelations are planned have implications that extend beyond Fort Ravenshollow's immediate jurisdiction. At exactly 0900 hours, the door opens to admit 4 figures who transform the room's atmosphere through their mere presence. The lead figure is a woman in her late 40s wearing civilian clothes that cannot disguise her military bearing. Behind her, 3 men in formal suits carry briefcases and expressions that suggest access to information that operates above normal security classifications. "Good morning," the woman begins, her voice carrying authority that immediately establishes hierarchy. "I am Director Sarah Kellerman from the Defense Intelligence Agency's Special Activities Division. We're here to address concerns regarding Lieutenant Aria Blackthorne and to provide clarification about her actual mission at Fort Ravenshollow." The room goes completely silent. Defense Intelligence Agency involvement suggests intelligence operations far more complex than anyone had imagined. Special Activities Division implies covert activities with national security implications. Director Kellerman's presence indicates that Aria's situation involves classified operations at the highest levels of government authority. "Before we begin," Director Kellerman continues, "I want to emphasize that everything discussed in this briefing is classified at compartmented special access program level. Unauthorized disclosure carries severe legal consequences under the Espionage Act." Captain Kozlov experiences his first moment of genuine uncertainty. The systematic campaign he's conducted against Aria suddenly appears in an entirely different context. If she's involved in classified intelligence operations, his actions may have interfered with national security activities rather than exposing security vulnerabilities. Director Kellerman activates a secure presentation system and begins displaying information that systematically demolishes every assumption about Aria's background and qualifications. Lieutenant Blackthorne is not a linguistics support specialist. She is a deep-cover intelligence officer with specialized training in international military coordination, operational security assessment, and foreign language proficiency that extends to 11 languages with native-level fluency. The first slide displays Aria's actual credentials. Defense Language Institute with highest honors in 7 languages. Advanced training at the Joint Special Operations Command. Specialized certification in international military protocols from NATO headquarters. Combat deployment history and classified operations across 4 continents. Performance evaluations that describe her as one of the most capable intelligence officers in current service. Major Rodriguez realizes that every mysterious aspect of Aria's behavior now makes perfect sense. The sophisticated technical knowledge, the operational security practices, the unnatural composure under pressure, the linguistic capabilities that exceeded documented qualifications, all evidence of training and experience that operates far beyond normal military specializations. Lieutenant Blackthorne's assignment to Fort Ravenshollow was part of Operation Looking Glass, Director Kellerman explains, a comprehensive assessment of American military facilities' readiness for international coordination during crisis situations. Her mission involved evaluating communication protocols, security procedures, personnel reliability, and operational efficiency under simulated emergency conditions. The operation's scope becomes clear through additional slides. Systematic testing of international communication capabilities, assessment of security vulnerabilities that could compromise multinational operations, evaluation of personnel behavior under stress conditions that might reveal security risks or operational weaknesses, documentation of facility readiness for classified coordination requirements. Captain Torres understands that Aria's psychological profile, the unnatural calm, the resistance to pressure, the methodical approach to every challenge, represents training designed to maintain operational effectiveness under extreme conditions. Her apparent composure during systematic harassment wasn't unusual resilience. It was professional discipline acquired through specialized intelligence training. The harassment and professional attacks directed against Lieutenant Blackthorne, Director Kellerman continues, were not anticipated as part of her mission parameters. However, they provided valuable intelligence about facility culture, command structure reliability, and security awareness among personnel. Captain Kozlov realizes with growing horror that his systematic campaign against Aria has been documented as part of a classified intelligence assessment. Every action he took, every alliance he formed, every procedure he manipulated has been recorded and analyzed by intelligence professionals evaluating Fort Ravenshollow's operational security. Director Kellerman displays communication logs that document Kozlov's coordination with administrative personnel to restrict Aria's access, his manipulation of assignment protocols to create professional obstacles, and his systematic campaign to undermine her credibility. The evidence reveals behavior patterns that intelligence analysts categorize as security risks in international coordination environments. Captain Kozlov, Director Kellerman addresses him directly. Your actions during Lieutenant Blackthorne's assignment demonstrate concerning patterns of behavior that compromise operational security and international cooperation effectiveness. Your willingness to manipulate administrative procedures, coordinate harassment campaigns, and prioritize personal authority over mission requirements represents exactly the kind of security vulnerability that Operation Looking Glass was designed to identify. The room's atmosphere shifts dramatically as everyone realizes that Kozlov's systematic campaign against Aria has been perceived not as professional diligence, but as evidence of security risks that could compromise international operations. His actions have marked him as someone whose personal prejudices override mission requirements, a fundamental disqualification for positions involving multinational coordination. Lieutenant Colonel Hendricks processes the implications of having supervised a classified intelligence operation without awareness of its true nature. Her facility has been evaluated by professionals who understand operational security, international coordination, and personnel reliability at levels that exceed normal military training. The assessment process has identified both strengths and vulnerabilities in ways that will influence Fort Ravenshollow's future assignments and capabilities. The evaluation phase of Operation Looking Glass is now complete, Director Kellerman announces. Lieutenant Blackthorne's mission has provided comprehensive intelligence about facility readiness, security procedures, and personnel reliability. Based on her assessment, recommendations will be implemented to address identified vulnerabilities and enhance international coordination capabilities. The briefing continues with technical details about security improvements, personnel training modifications, and procedural changes designed to address vulnerabilities identified during Aria's assessment. Each recommendation reflects sophisticated understanding of international military coordination requirements that extends far beyond Fort Ravenshollow's current capabilities. As the official briefing concludes, Director Kellerman makes an announcement that changes everything. Lieutenant Blackthorne will conclude her cover assignment tomorrow. Her actual credentials and mission authority will be revealed during a formal ceremony attended by senior officials from multiple allied nations. The systematic campaign to expose Aria's limitations is about to culminate in a revelation that will demonstrate exactly who she really is, what authority she actually possesses, and why her presence at Fort Ravenshollow was never about linguistics support. Tomorrow, Captain Kozlov and everyone else who participated in her harassment will discover that they've been testing themselves against someone whose qualifications and authority extend far beyond anything they imagined possible. The woman they've been trying to destroy professionally is about to reveal capabilities, credentials, and connections that will transform their understanding of international military coordination, intelligence operations, and the hidden networks that protect American interests across the globe. Wednesday morning arrives with unprecedented ceremony at Fort Ravenshollow. The main parade ground has been transformed into a formal venue with military precision that suggests events extending far beyond routine base operations. Honor guards from multiple allied nations stand in formation, their uniforms representing the international scope of whatever is about to unfold. At 0800 hours, a convoy of official vehicles arrives at the main gate. The procession includes diplomatic vehicles bearing flags from 7 NATO member nations, Pentagon staff cars with senior officer insignia, and specialized transport that suggests participants with authority that operates at the highest levels of international military coordination. The assembled personnel include everyone who participated in recent international exercises, but the atmosphere differs dramatically from normal military gatherings. This ceremony carries implications that extend beyond Fort Ravenshollow's typical operational scope, involving officials whose presence suggests revelations with national security significance. Captain Kozlov stands among the assembled officers with growing apprehension that has replaced his earlier confidence. Director Kellerman's briefing yesterday revealed that his systematic campaign against Aria was documented as part of a classified intelligence assessment. Rather than exposing security vulnerabilities, his actions identified him as a security risk whose personal prejudices compromise operational effectiveness. Major Rodriguez observes the gathering with professional curiosity about the true scope of Operation Looking Glass and Aria's actual mission. The international representation suggests coordination requirements that extend far beyond Fort Ravenshollow's normal jurisdiction, involving operational security assessments with implications for multinational military cooperation. At exactly 0900 hours, the ceremony begins with precision that demonstrates careful choreography. Director Kellerman approaches the podium accompanied by officials whose uniforms display insignia representing the highest levels of American and Allied military leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, Director Kellerman's voice carries across the parade ground with authority that commands absolute attention. We are here today to conclude Operation Looking Glass and to reveal the true identity and mission of the officer you have known as Lieutenant Aria Blackthorne. The formal presentation begins with documentation of Aria's actual qualifications and authority, Defense Intelligence Agency credentials, with specialized authorization for international coordination assessments, Joint Special Operations Command certification for deep cover intelligence operations, NATO headquarters accreditation for multinational security evaluations, academic qualifications, including advanced degrees in international relations, military strategy, and linguistic analysis from institutions that require specialized security clearance for enrollment. General Patricia Hawkins, representing Joint Chiefs of Staff Coordination, steps forward to provide additional context. Operation Looking Glass was designed to assess American military facilities' readiness for classified international operations during crisis situations. Lieutenant Commander Blackthorne was selected for this mission based on capabilities that represent the highest levels of professional excellence in intelligence, linguistics, and international coordination. The rank revelation creates visible shock among assembled personnel. Lieutenant Commander suggests authority equivalent to senior staff positions, far exceeding anything implied by her apparent subordinate status during the assessment period. Her actual rank places her above most of the officers who participated in her harassment, including Captain Kozlov himself. Admiral James Morrison, representing NATO Coordination Authority, provides international perspective on the assessment mission. Commander Blackthorne's evaluation of Fort Ravenshollow's international readiness involves systematic testing of communication protocols, security procedures, personnel reliability, and facility capability for classified multinational operations. Her assessment will influence facility assignments and capabilities for years to come. The international scope becomes clear as representatives from German, Polish, Norwegian, French, Italian, and Spanish military commands provide testimonials about Aria's linguistic capabilities and operational coordination expertise. Each representative describes interactions that revealed professional competence extending far beyond anything suggested by her cover identity. Colonel Anders Bergstrom speaks for the Norwegian contingent. Commander Blackthorne's coordination during Operation Northern Bridge demonstrated linguistic and tactical capabilities that exceed standards we maintain for our most experienced international liaison officers. Major Klaus Richter represents German assessment. Her technical German during multinational exercises showed specialized military vocabulary that indicates advanced training in international coordination protocols. Captain Marek Kowalski provides Polish evaluation. Communication coordination was flawless throughout complex logistics scenarios that typically challenge entire translation departments. Each testimonial reinforces the systematic nature of Aria's assessment mission and the professional excellence that characterized her. Performance despite harassment and professional obstacles created by facility personnel who misunderstood her actual authority and mission. Director Kellerman returns to the podium to address the harassment campaign that characterized Aria's assignment. Commander Blackthorne's mission parameters did not anticipate systematic professional attacks from facility personnel. However, these attacks provided valuable intelligence about command structure reliability, security awareness, and personnel behavior under conditions that might compromise international operations. The assessment results are presented with clinical precision that transforms harassment into evidence of operational security vulnerabilities. Captain Kozlov's manipulation of administrative procedures, his coordination of exclusion campaigns, and his systematic attempts to undermine operational effectiveness are documented as security risks that compromise facility readiness for classified international coordination. The behavior patterns documented during Commander Blackthorne's assessment, Director Kellerman continues, identified personnel whose personal prejudices override mission requirements, whose willingness to manipulate procedures compromises operational security, and whose command approach prioritizes personal authority over international cooperation effectiveness. General Hawkins provides the operational implications. Based on Commander Blackthorne's assessment, Fort Ravenshollow will undergo comprehensive restructuring to address identified security vulnerabilities and enhance capabilities for classified international operations. Personnel demonstrating reliable performance during the assessment period will receive expanded responsibilities. Personnel whose behavior compromised operational security will be reassigned to positions that do not involve international coordination. The systematic consequences become clear as transfer orders are announced for multiple personnel, including Captain Kozlov, who will be reassigned to administrative duties that remove him from any position involving multinational cooperation or operational security responsibilities. His systematic campaign against Aria has marked him as unsuitable for positions requiring international coordination capabilities. At 1,000 hours, the moment arrives that transforms everyone's understanding of the woman they've known as Lieutenant Aria Blackthorne. She approaches the podium wearing her actual uniform for the first time since arriving at Fort Ravenshollow. The insignia displays lieutenant commander rank, specialized qualifications in intelligence operations, and decorations representing service in classified missions across multiple theaters of operation. When she speaks, her voice carries none of the hesitation or uncertainty that characterized her stuttered English communications. Thank you for your patience during my assessment mission. The systematic evaluation of Fort Ravenshollow's international coordination capabilities required maintaining cover identity while documenting operational readiness under realistic conditions. Her speech is clear, confident, professionally articulated without any trace of the speech impediment that affected her cover persona. The linguistic transformation is as dramatic as the rank revelation, demonstrating that her communication difficulties were part of her operational disguise rather than actual limitations. The harassment and professional obstacles I encountered, she continues, were not anticipated but provided valuable intelligence about facility culture, personnel reliability, and security awareness. These observations will enhance Fort Ravenshollow's capabilities for future international operations while addressing vulnerabilities that could compromise classified coordination requirements. The ceremony concludes with formal recognition of personnel who demonstrated professional excellence during the assessment period. Major Rodriguez receives commendation for analytical thinking and security awareness. Captain Torres is recognized for psychological evaluation capabilities. Lieutenant Colonel Hendricks receives acknowledgement for facility coordination and administrative support. The systematic campaign to expose Aria's limitations has culminated in revelations that demonstrate exactly who she really is. what authority she actually possesses, and why her presence at Fort Ravenshollow represented assessment rather than assignment. The woman who endured months of harassment and professional attacks has revealed capabilities, credentials, and connections that transform understanding of international military coordination, intelligence operations, and operational security assessment. As the ceremony concludes and international representatives prepare to depart, the transformation of Fort Ravenshollow begins immediately. New security procedures, enhanced training programs, and expanded international coordination capabilities will address vulnerabilities identified during Commander Blackthorne's systematic assessment. The facility that once harbored security risks and operational weaknesses will emerge as a center of excellence for international military coordination, prepared for classified operations that require the highest levels of professional competence, security awareness, and multinational cooperation capabilities. The full scope of Operation Looking Glass unfolds over the following 72 hours as Commander Blackthorne provides comprehensive briefings about her systematic assessment of Fort Ravenshollow's international coordination capabilities. The debriefing sessions reveal methodologies and findings that transform understanding of operational security, personnel reliability, and facility readiness for classified multinational operations. Director Kellerman conducts the primary briefing in a secure conference room, equipped with classification systems that ensure absolute confidentiality. The assembled audience includes senior officials from multiple agencies whose combined authority represents the highest levels of American defense establishment oversight. Commander Blackthorne's mission extended far beyond linguistic capability assessment. Director Kellerman begins. Operation Looking Glass was designed to evaluate facility culture, command structure effectiveness, security awareness, and personnel behavior under conditions that simulate security challenges facing modern international operations. The assessment methodology is revealed through detailed documentation that demonstrates sophisticated intelligence tradecraft. Area's cover identity as a stuttering linguistics specialist was carefully constructed to appear vulnerable while providing access to all facility operations. Her speech impediment served dual purposes, creating a believable reason for apparent professional inadequacy while testing facility personnel's responses to perceived weakness. Commander Blackthorne takes over the briefing to explain her systematic evaluation procedures. The assessment began with establishing baseline facility operations through routine assignment integration. My apparent communication difficulties provided opportunities to observe personnel behavior, security protocols, and command structure responses to non-standard situations. Her documentation reveals comprehensive analysis of facility strengths and vulnerabilities. Positive findings include sophisticated technical capabilities, effective international coordination infrastructure, and personnel with genuine expertise in multinational operations. Major Rodriguez's analytical thinking and security awareness receive specific commendation as examples of professional excellence that enhances facility operational effectiveness. However, the assessment also identified significant security vulnerabilities that could compromise classified international operations, command structure weaknesses that allow personal prejudices to override mission requirements, administrative procedures that can be manipulated by personnel with sufficient influence, cultural patterns that prioritize hierarchical authority over operational effectiveness. Captain Kozlov's systematic campaign against my cover identity, Commander Blackthorne explains, provided comprehensive documentation of facility vulnerabilities that foreign intelligence services could exploit to compromise international coordination operations. His willingness to manipulate procedures, coordinate harassment, and prioritize personal authority over mission effectiveness represents exactly the kind of security risk that endangers classified operations. The briefing includes detailed analysis of each incident during her assignment, the equipment inventory that revealed sophisticated technical capabilities while testing facility security awareness, the international exercises that demonstrated linguistic requirements while evaluating personnel reliability, the harassment campaign that exposed command structure weaknesses while documenting security vulnerabilities. General Hawkins provides strategic context for the assessment findings. Commander Blackthorne's evaluation will influence facility assignments, personnel qualifications, and security procedures across multiple installations involved in classified international operations. The vulnerabilities identified at Fort Ravenshollow exist at other facilities, making this assessment crucial for broader operational security enhancement. The remediation program is comprehensive and immediate. New security protocols address administrative vulnerabilities that allowed unauthorized access restrictions and procedural manipulation. Enhanced training programs focus on international coordination requirements, cultural sensitivity, and operational security awareness. Personnel evaluation procedures now include assessment of behavior patterns that might compromise multinational operations. Captain Kozlov's case study becomes part of training materials that teach security awareness about insider threats and administrative manipulation. His systematic campaign against Commander Blackthorne demonstrates how personal prejudices can create security vulnerabilities, how procedural manipulation can compromise operations, and how hierarchical authority can be misused to prioritize individual preferences over mission requirements. The international implications extend beyond Fort Ravenshollow as allied nations receive assessment reports about American facility capabilities and security procedures. NATO headquarters uses the findings to enhance multinational coordination protocols. Allied intelligence services implement similar assessment methodologies to evaluate their own facilities' readiness for classified international operations. Commander Blackthorne's linguistic capabilities during the assessment represent only one aspect of her actual qualifications. Her complete credential review reveals expertise in psychological operations, counterintelligence analysis, international relations, strategic planning, and operational security assessment. Her cover identity as a linguistics specialist utilized a fraction of her actual capabilities, while providing access to facility operations requiring comprehensive evaluation. The speech impediment element of my cover identity, she explains during technical briefing, was designed to create cognitive dissonance that would reveal personnel behavior patterns under non-standard conditions. The contrast between apparent communication difficulties and demonstrated professional competence provided opportunities to assess facility responses to unexpected capability demonstrations. The psychological operation was sophisticated in its simplicity. Personnel expecting professional inadequacy based on communication difficulties were confronted with evidence of extraordinary competence that challenged their assumptions. Their responses revealed security awareness, analytical thinking, and professional judgment that influenced their suitability for classified international coordination operations. Director Kellerman provides final assessment conclusions that will guide future facility operations and personnel assignments. Commander Blackthorne's evaluation demonstrates that Fort Ravenshollow possesses technical capabilities and professional expertise necessary for classified international operations. However, security vulnerabilities and command structure weaknesses require comprehensive remediation before the facility can be certified for operations involving sensitive multinational coordination. The transformation program begins immediately with personnel changes that address identified security risks. Captain Kozlov's reassignment removes someone whose behavior patterns compromise operational security. Administrative procedure modifications prevent procedural manipulation that could affect mission effectiveness. Training programs enhance security awareness and international coordination capabilities. New assignments bring personnel with specialized qualifications in international operations, security procedures, and multinational coordination. The facility's mission expands to include classified operations, requiring the highest levels of professional competence and security awareness. Fort Ravenshollow will become a center of excellence for international military coordination rather than a standard regional facility. Commander Blackthorne's next assignment involves similar assessment missions at other facilities, requiring evaluation for classified international operations. Her expertise in deep cover intelligence operations, linguistic capabilities, and operational security assessment makes her uniquely qualified for missions requiring systematic evaluation of facility readiness and personnel reliability. The systematic campaign that began with harassment of a stuttering linguistics specialist concludes with comprehensive facility transformation, enhanced international coordination capabilities, and improved operational security procedures. The assessment mission that appeared to test translation capabilities actually evaluated facility readiness for classified operations requiring the highest levels of professional excellence and security awareness. Operation Looking Glass demonstrates that modern security challenges require sophisticated assessment methodologies that reveal vulnerabilities through systematic testing rather than theoretical evaluation. Commander Blackthorne's mission provides a model for facility assessment that will enhance American and allied capabilities for classified international operations requiring absolute reliability and professional competence. The woman who endured months of systematic harassment while maintaining operational discipline has provided intelligence that will enhance international coordination capabilities across multiple facilities and allied nations. Her professional sacrifice during the assessment mission has contributed to operational security improvements that will protect classified operations and personnel for years to come. 6 months after Operation Looking Glass, Fort Ravenshollow has emerged as the premier facility for classified international coordination operations. The transformation extends far beyond administrative changes or personnel reassignments. The entire institutional culture has evolved to reflect professional excellence, security awareness, and multinational cooperation capabilities that set new standards for American military facilities. The morning briefing room where Commander Blackthorne once endured systematic harassment now serves as the nerve center for operations involving coordination between allied forces across multiple continents. The walls display commendations from NATO headquarters, recognition certificates from 7 allied nations, and operational awards acknowledging Fort Ravenshollow's contribution to classified international missions, requiring the highest levels of professional competence. Major Rodriguez, now promoted to Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez, leads the facility's Enhanced International Coordination Division. Her analytical thinking and security awareness, identified during Commander Blackthorne's assessment, have made her instrumental in developing new protocols for multinational operations. The division coordinates classified activities involving intelligence sharing, tactical coordination, and strategic planning that requires absolute reliability and cultural sensitivity. The transformation has been remarkable, Rodriguez explains during a visit from Pentagon evaluation teams. We've evolved from a standard regional facility to a specialized center for international operations, requiring sophisticated coordination capabilities. Our personnel now receive advanced training in security protocols, cultural awareness, and multinational communication that exceeds previous standards. The facility's new mission encompasses responsibilities that extend across multiple theaters of operation. Coordination support for NATO Article 5 operations. Intelligence liaison activities involving allied services. Strategic planning assistance for multinational crisis response. Cultural mediation services for complex international negotiations. Each mission requires capabilities that were developed through systematic remediation of vulnerabilities identified during Commander Blackthorne's assessment. Captain Torres, promoted to Major Torres, directs the facility's Enhanced Personnel Evaluation Program. Her psychological assessment expertise, demonstrated during Operation Looking Glass, has become crucial for developing selection criteria that identify personnel suitable for classified international operations, requiring exceptional judgment and security awareness. Commander Blackthorne's mission taught us that traditional evaluation methods don't adequately assess personnel behavior under unconventional conditions, Torres explains. We've developed assessment procedures that reveal security awareness, cultural sensitivity, and professional judgment through systematic testing rather than theoretical evaluation. The program includes psychological profiling that identifies personnel whose personal prejudices might compromise international operations, stress testing that evaluates performance under conditions simulating security challenges, cultural sensitivity assessment that measures ability to work effectively with allied personnel from different national traditions, security awareness evaluation that tests responses to potential compromise scenarios. Lieutenant Colonel Hendricks, now Colonel Hendricks, commands the facility with authority that reflects its enhanced mission and expanded responsibilities. Her administrative coordination during Operation Looking Glass demonstrated capability for managing complex operations requiring absolute confidentiality and international cooperation. Fort Ravenshollow has become a model for facility transformation that addresses modern security challenges. Hendricks states during congressional briefing sessions, the assessment methodology developed through Operation Looking Glass provides systematic evaluation capabilities that enhance operational security across multiple installations. The facility's success has influenced broader changes in military training, personnel evaluation, and operational security procedures. Other installations implement similar assessment programs to identify vulnerabilities that could compromise classified operations. Allied nations request consultation about facility enhancement based on Fort Ravenshollow's transformation model. Commander Blackthorne's methodology has become standard procedure for facility assessment requiring systematic evaluation of security readiness and personnel reliability. Her expertise in deep cover operations, linguistic capabilities, and operational security assessment makes her a primary resource for developing assessment programs at facilities requiring certification for classified international operations. The International Training Center established at Fort Ravenshollow hosts personnel from allied nations seeking advanced coordination capabilities. Officers from NATO member countries attend specialized programs in multinational communication, cultural mediation, and operational security. The facility has become a diplomatic asset that enhances American relationships with international partners requiring sophisticated coordination capabilities. The mess hall where Commander Blackthorne once ate, standing by the wall, now serves as an international dining facility where officers from multiple nations coordinate over meals that reflect the facility's multinational mission. The atmosphere emphasizes professional cooperation and cultural exchange, rather than hierarchical dominance or exclusionary behavior. A memorial plaque near the entrance honors personnel who demonstrated professional excellence during challenging assessment conditions. Major Rodriguez's analytical thinking, Captain Torres's psychological evaluation expertise, Lieutenant Colonel Hendricks's administrative coordination, Colonel Bergstrom's international cooperation, Major Richter's technical expertise, Captain Kowalski's logistics coordination. The plaque does not mention Captain Kozlov, whose reassignment to administrative duties removed him from international coordination responsibilities. His systematic campaign against Commander Blackthorne serves as a case study in security awareness training that teaches personnel about insider threats and procedural manipulation that can compromise operational effectiveness. The storage room where Commander Blackthorne conducted equipment inventory has become a technical laboratory for developing communication systems requiring international coordination capabilities. Advanced encryption systems, multilingual communication protocols, and security procedures that ensure operational integrity during complex multinational operations. Her technical modifications to vintage equipment demonstrated engineering capabilities that led to facility designation as a research center for international communication systems. The restored KL-7 crypto device remains operational as a demonstration of technical innovation under resource constraints that characterizes successful operational adaptation. Commander Blackthorne's current assignment involves similar assessment missions at installations requiring evaluation for classified international operations. Her success at Fort Ravenshollow has established her as the premier specialist for facility assessment, requiring systematic evaluation of operational security, personnel reliability, and international coordination capabilities. Each assessment mission contributes to broader enhancement of American military capabilities for international operations requiring absolute professional competence and security awareness. The methodology developed through Operation Looking Glass provides systematic evaluation procedures that identify vulnerabilities before they compromise classified operations. The woman who endured systematic harassment while maintaining operational discipline has transformed not just Fort Ravenshollow, but broader approaches to facility assessment, personnel evaluation, and operational security enhancement. Her professional sacrifice during the assessment mission has contributed to institutional changes that protect classified operations and personnel across multiple installations and allied nations. Fort Ravenshollow stands as proof that systematic assessment and comprehensive remediation can transform institutional culture, enhance operational capabilities, and develop professional excellence that exceeds previous standards. The U facility that once harbored security vulnerabilities and command structure weaknesses has become a model for international coordination, requiring the highest levels of competence and reliability. The systematic campaign that began with mockery of a stuttering linguistics specialist has culminated in institutional transformation that enhances American and allied capabilities for classified operations requiring sophisticated coordination across multiple nations, languages, and operational traditions. Commander Blackthorne's mission demonstrates that apparent weakness can conceal extraordinary strength, that systematic assessment reveals truths that conventional evaluation misses, and that professional excellence emerges through challenges that test character, competence, and commitment to mission success over personal comfort. The story continues with each new assessment mission, each facility transformation, and each enhancement of international coordination capabilities that protect classified operations and personnel, requiring absolute reliability in an increasingly complex global security environment. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.